Well, hello there, my friends. Chris
I don't necessarily think of JP Morgan Research as the smart money.
Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And here's an interesting one. Consumer inflation likely to be another scorcher in July, economists say. I would certainly agree with that. Arcadian economists are predicting we're going to break 6% in July on this one. Of course, if we actually were doing real calculations without silly doctored government numbers, it would be much higher than that. But we'll stay on track here. Economists expect a hot inflation report for July, but the jump in consumer prices has likely peaked. Now, it doesn't say has definitely peaked, has likely peaked, which means there's some debate about it. And although inflation is expected to have peaked, the debate over whether it has peaked will not end, as economists expect to see continued increases in rent prices.
I just don't see how it's possible.
Well, that debate has actually been going back to Ben Bernanke, who said that it was transitory back in 2008 while he started hyperinflating the money supply.
None of this adds up.
Which now Janet Yellen has giggled at, saying that's not fast enough. I wonder what it's based on, though, but the jump in consumer prices has likely peaked. What would make one think that, given that if we look on the headline here, we see that here's what's next for the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. So I'm not sure what fool would actually think that the inflation has peaked unless he was either being drugged or outright lying. So excluding food and energy, why would those matter? On a year-over-year basis, June's core CPI of 4.5%, which seems to be more than double the Fed's 2% mandate, was the highest since September of 1991. Keep in mind, we had a 4.5% print, a 5% print, and then the last one I think was over 5%. And they said all those were transitory. So that's 3 months of non-transitory figures that were well in excess. So even if it's peaked, let's say that were true, what if it's peaked, but it's going to only come down to 5% for the next couple hundred years since they're hyperinflating the currency? We'll see if the article addresses that question. But instead of asking me, they asked Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moodys. Now, fortunately, as an Arcadian economist, I would like to demonstrate my credentials because Moodys was my first job out of undergraduate socialist school here in the United States. And I was there, in fact, my first couple months is interesting because they got in trouble for how they bungled the whole Enron situation and the conflicts of interest that were present there. And then a month after that, I was walking out of the office after I watched the trade centers pulverized into dust in front of my face, which is scientifically impossible, as you'll see in another video that's coming your way shortly this week. But it's interesting, they still rate US government debt AAA, saying it's not possible to have a better credit profile than that of the US government, which is the most indebted Ponzi scheme in the history of the planet. And the guy that says that that's a great way to invest, they asked for his opinion from Moodys, so we'll factor that in. If the inflation report is hotter than expected when it is reported Wednesday, now what they didn't tell you here is that if it's actually hotter than, even if it's like 10%, you still could see the price of silver get clobbered because it's traded in paper. So you have multiple inverse variant Ponzi schemes unraveling upon themselves at the same time. So it's going to be a little bit of a volatile week. You can expect that. I bet the VIX is going to go up towards the end of the week. Also, I've been talking to people all day. I can't figure out how the physical silver dealers have any inventory left before the week is over. I'm not saying that's what will happen. I'm just saying that's what I've been trying to ask Andy Schechtman. I can't get him on the phone. Called his wife a couple of times, trying to explain why I've been asking her that, why I've been asking him that. I'm guessing it's related to the number of calls he has. And I guess that if I've been sitting here converting any cash I'm owed or have out of dollars as quickly as possible, and wondering if other people are going to start doing that as well. That's just what I've been wondering. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, hey, inflation, you never know with these government numbers. It could be a lot lower than expected. Especially, here's another thing that's intriguing. When the numbers release, they release it in an article, right? But that article was already written, right? So they had to have the number to write the article, right? Which means that CNBC and Wall Street Journal, they had the number before you did. But who owns CNBC? Who owns Wall Street Journal? Who owns the Federal Reserve? What if some of these same institutions were owned by some of the same people, or they had someone who worked on Wall Street and knew how to create entities that Enron structured, Moody's rated AAA, housing bonds that Moody's rated AAA? What if somebody knew how to create those shell entities that made it look safe and that it had a guarantee, that underlying it was just based on printed digital credit? Those are the kind of things I'm wondering right now. But Zandy said higher used car prices should also be a factor, but the increase is not likely to come near the 10.5% increase in June. Now, I wonder why he's expecting it to slow down in the face of all the printed money that's going out right now. Maybe it's because Goldman Sachs economists expect used cars to give CPI a boost, even though industry reports show some price declines. Again, we heard Jeff Curry of Goldman Sachs lie repeatedly on television.
The shorts are the ETFs.
I reported it to the CFTC and Ralston Benham.
In terms of thinking about how you're going to create a squeeze,
The head of trading for Goldman said, we don't listen to our own research department.
the shorts are the ETFs. The ETFs buy the physical, they turn around and they sell on the COMEX.
Even though the surge in CPI is likely topped out, the year-over-year comparisons should continue to look elevated because of the base effects.
Okay, that explains it.
Maybe they'll look elevated because of the hyperinflation campaign, but don't worry, because Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said the elevated inflation should slow as the supply chain issues are resolved.
I don't necessarily put a lot of weight on that.
I've not yet talked to one executive. Certainly that's not the case in the silver industry, where
The only people that I've heard calling inflation transitory are people in the media, people on the news, people who I don't know.
Galen McNamara of Suma Silver. But economists are eyeing rent prices, which a couple months ago, home prices went up 24%.
That's why I say
I don't know how that would factor over into rents.
it's incredibly unlikely.
Yeah.
Zandy even said rent was up more than 8% year over year in June and should tick up by another 0.2 or 0.3% for the month in July. So you could see how economists could take all of that data, and I mean, I guess one could take all of that data and say they think that this is transitory.
Do they actually believe it's transitory?
A lot of these people are lying directly to your face, as they've been doing for years, hundreds of years. But again, I can't give licensed financial advice. I don't have the licensing that Ross Benham of the CFTC has, that Jerome Powell has, that Ben Bernanke, who said subprime was likely to be contained and wasn't a problem, even as it was unraveling. I don't have his credentials. I didn't go to Princeton. I didn't teach there. So just a dude on the internet, cares about people, talks about silver, loves silver. By the way, I can produce trading records that show I was buying out of the money call options, and I can provide phone verification and legal financial records if anybody ever wanted to talk about this in a courtroom, showing just what I did with my own money, of course, because I'm not legally licensed to advise others. We'll wrap up there and see what happens to the silver price over the next week. I'm excited to watch. Maybe it'll be, I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't been selling paper silver. I've helped people buy physical silver if they asked for it. That's it, though. So anyway, see you later.